The morning sun filtered through the trees, casting long shadows over the riverbank. Io sat silently, staring at his trembling hands. His body was back on dry land, but his mind was still trapped in the depths of the cursed river. The figure's words echoed relentlessly in his head. "Bring me another soul, and I will spare yours." Efe hovered nearby, his face a mixture of relief and fear. "Io, talk to me. What happened out there? You were gone for hours." Io turned to his friend, his eyes flickering red for the briefest moment before returning to their normal brown. I don't know," he lied, his voice hoarse. "I blacked out. The current was too strong." Efe frowned, stepping closer. "But how did you make it back? The river doesn't let people go. Everyone knows that." Io avoided his gaze, guilt tightening his chest. He couldn't tell Efe the truth. Not yet. Not about the spirit, the curse, or the impossible choice he now faced. The weight of the spirit's demand bore heavily on him. Word of Io's survival spread quickly through the village. The river had long been a source of fear and mystery, its reputation cemented by the countless lives it had claimed. Io, returning alive, was an anomaly that could not be ignored. People whispered behind his back, their eyes filled with suspicion. Villagers avoided him when he walked by, clutching their children tightly and muttering prayers under their breath. To them, no one escaped the river unscathed. By midday, Mama Oju, the elder who led the village's rituals, sent word for Io to come to her hut. Though he tried to delay, he knew ignoring her summons would only raise more questions. Inside Mama Oju's hut, the air was thick with the scent of burning herbs. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her wrinkled face shadowed by the flickering light of a single candle. She fixed Io with her piercing gaze as he entered. "You went into the river at night," she said without preamble, her voice low and steady. "And yet, here you are, alive." Io shifted uncomfortably, his hands clenched at his sides. "I was lucky," he murmured, not meeting her gaze. "There is no luck with Ndombe," she replied sharply, leaning forward. "The river chooses. What did it tell you?" Io's heart raced. How could she know? He tried to maintain his composure. "I don't know what you mean." Mama Oju's expression hardened. She pointed a gnarled finger at him. "The river does not give without taking. You carry its mark now. I can see it in your eyes." Io felt a jolt of panic. "I don't believe in your stories, Mama Oju. The river didn't take anything from me," he said, his voice rising defensively. But deep down, he knew she was right. That night, Io couldn't sleep. The river's whispers filled his ears, growing louder with each passing moment. He saw the ghostly faces of the trapped souls in his dreams, their hollow eyes pleading for freedom. When he woke, drenched in sweat, the whispers didn't stop. They were inside his head now, urging him to fulfill the spirit's demand. "Bring me another soul." Desperate for answers, Io turned to Efe. The two sat by the dying embers of a fire outside Efe's home, the night alive with the sounds of crickets and distant drums. "Efe," Io began hesitantly, "do you believe in curses?" Efe looked at him, startled. "Why are you asking me that? You've never believed in anything like that before." Io hesitated, his mind racing. He looked down at his hands, trembling once more. What if the river isn't just a story? What if it's real? The spirit, the curse, everything. Efe's face darkened with concern. "What happened to you, Io? You're not telling me everything." Io's voice broke as he whispered, "It wants me to bring it someone. Another soul. If I don't..." He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Efe stared at him, horrified. "You can't do that, Io. You can't give in to it." "I don't have a choice," Io snapped, his voice rising. "If I don't, it'll take me instead." Over the next few days, Io became withdrawn, avoiding the villagers and spending hours by the river, staring into its black depths. The spirit's whispers grew stronger, more insistent. One evening, as the village gathered for a celebration, Io spotted a young boy, Kofi, playing near the edge of the crowd. The boy was carefree, laughing as he chased a stray chicken. Io's heart twisted. Kofi was small and vulnerable, an easy target. The thought made him sick, but the spirit's voice was relentless. Bring me another soul. He shook his head, trying to push the thought away. But as the night wore on, the whispers became unbearable. Efe noticed Ayo's strange behavior and pulled him aside. What are you doing, Ayo? You're scaring me. I don't know what to do, Ayo admitted, his voice cracking. It won't leave me alone. It's like it's inside my head, controlling me. Efe grabbed his shoulders, his grip firm. Listen to me. We'll find another way. We'll talk to Mama Oju or the other elders. But you can't let it win. You can't hurt anyone. Ayo nodded, tears streaming down his face, but deep down he wasn't sure if he could resist the river's pull. That night, Ayo returned to the river, desperate to confront the spirit. He stood at the water's edge, his fists clenched. I won't do it, he shouted. I won't bring you anyone. The river churned violently, waves crashing against the shore. The spirit rose from the depths, its fiery red eyes burning with fury. You dare defy me? It hissed, its voice echoing like thunder. Then you will pay the price. Ayo felt the ground shift beneath him as ghostly hands emerged from the water, reaching for him. He stumbled back, but the hands were relentless, dragging him toward the river. Suddenly, a voice rang out behind him. Leave him alone. Ayo turned to see Efe, he holding a burning torch. He swung it at the ghostly hands, the flames causing them to recoil. The spirit shrieked, its form flickering like smoke. This is not over, it growled, sinking back into the water. Ayo collapsed on the ground, gasping for air. Efe knelt beside him, his face pale but determined. The dawn after the spirit's attack brought no peace to the village. Ayo and Efe sat by the smoldering remains of their fire, their faces pale and weary. The events of the previous night lingered like a dark cloud over them. We can't keep doing this, Ayo muttered, his voice hoarse. The spirit won't stop. It'll keep coming for me, or worse, for someone else. Efe, still clutching the torch he had used to fend off the spirit, nodded grimly. Then we fight. We find out how to destroy it. Ayo shook his head in despair. How do you fight something that isn't alive? It's not just a spirit, Efe, it's the river itself. But Efe's resolve was unshaken. The elders know things, Ayo. Mama Oju knows things. There has to be a way. We'll go to her together. Later that morning, they stood before Mama Oju in her dimly lit hut. The elder listened intently as Ayo recounted everything, the spirit, the curse, and its demand for another soul. When he finished, Mama Oju closed her eyes and sighed deeply. Her expression was grave, her shoulders heavy with the weight of the knowledge she bore. I warned you, Ayo. The river does not forgive trespassers. You have awakened a force that has slept for centuries. Then tell us how to stop it, Efe pleaded, his voice shaking with urgency. Mama Oju opened her eyes, her gaze heavy with sorrow. There is no stopping the river, but there is a way to break its hold on you. Ayo leaned forward, desperation etched on his face. How? The spirit is bound to the river by its betrayal, Mama Oju explained. Long ago, it was a powerful sorcerer, wronged by the villagers. They tricked him into the river where he drowned. His rage cursed the waters, and now he takes the souls of the living to feed his vengeance. What does that have to do with me? Ayo asked, his voice breaking. Mama Oju's expression darkened. You trespassed on his domain. The spirit marked you as his, but his power can be severed if you retrieve the artifact that binds him to the river. What artifact? Efe asked, his voice a mix of hope and trepidation. Mama Oju gestured to the river outside. At the bottom of the river lies the sorcerer's talisman. It is the source of his power. If you destroy it, the curse will end. That night, armed with nothing but torches and a pouch of protective herbs given to them by Mama Oju, Ayo and Efe stood at the riverbank. The water was eerily calm, reflecting the moonlight like a black mirror. Are you sure about this? Efe asked, his voice trembling. No, Ayo admitted, gripping the pouch tightly. But I don't have a choice. The two exchanged a glance, their fear unspoken but shared. Together, they waded into the water, their steps hesitant and deliberate. The cold was biting, and every movement felt like pushing through thick mud, as though the river itself resisted their intrusion. As they swam deeper, the whispers began. Faint at first, then louder, echoing in their minds. Turn back! You don't belong here. Your souls are mine. The river's depths were dark and endless, but the herbs seemed to protect them, creating a faint glow around their bodies that pushed back the shadows. Then they saw it, a faint glimmer at the bottom of the river, the talisman. The spirit awakens. As Io reached for the talisman, the water around them erupted in chaos. The spirit rose from the depths, its fiery red eyes blazing with fury. You dare defy me? It roared, its voice shaking the water itself. Io grabbed the talisman. The moment his fingers closed around it, a surge of energy coursed through him. The spirit lunged, its skeletal hands reaching for Io. But Efe stepped forward, holding the torch high. The flame flared brightly, forcing the spirit to recoil. Destroy it, Io! Efe shouted, his voice desperate. The spirit shrieked, its form twisting and writhing like smoke caught in a storm. If you destroy it, you will doom us all. The souls I hold will be lost forever. Io hesitated, the talisman pulsing in his hand. He saw the faces of the trapped souls swirling in the water around him, their hollow eyes filled with despair. What do I do, Efe? Io cried, his voice cracking with anguish. Don't listen to it, Efe yelled. It's lying! Destroy it! A terrible choice. Io's mind raced. If the spirit was telling the truth, destroying the talisman would condemn the souls to oblivion. But if he didn't, the curse would never end, and the spirit's wrath would continue to haunt the village. The spirit's voice softened, becoming almost pleading. You can set them free another way. Place the talisman back, and I will spare your village. I will take no more souls. Efe's voice cut through the confusion. Don't trust it, Io. It'll never stop. I don't know what to do. You have to choose, Efe shouted, his voice echoing in the chaotic waters. With a cry of anguish, Io raised the talisman high above his head and smashed it against a jagged rock. The curse is broken. The moment the talisman shattered, the river erupted in a blinding light. The spirit let out a deafening scream, its form disintegrating into smoke and shadow. The water calmed, and the ghostly faces of the trapped souls rose to the surface. For a brief moment, they smiled, their expressions filled with gratitude, before fading into the light. Io and Efe were thrown back onto the riverbank, gasping for air. The night was silent, the river now a still, unremarkable stream. It's over, Efe whispered, his voice trembling. Io stared at the water, his body shaking with exhaustion. It's over, he echoed, though the weight of his choice lingered in his heart. If you enjoyed this thrilling story and want more captivating tales, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps us out. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming in our next story. It's packed with even more twists, suspense, and unforgettable moments. So make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when it drops. Also, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below about what you'd do if you were in Io's shoes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in our next story.